200 hours, Hindu Kush mountain range, unnamed sector. The valley floor lies buried in absolute darkness. Jagged peaks cut into the night sky, blocking out the starlight. A freezing wind howls through the skeletal remains of a centuries-old mud brick compound. Inside the crumbled walls, 12 men crouch in the shadows of a collapsed stable. Their breathing is ragged but rhythmic. The air tastes of wet earth, stale sweat, and the sharp copper tang of blood. A stray dog barks in the distance, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. The silence returns, heavier than before. It presses down on the small team like a physical weight. A single pebble skitters down the slate roof of the main building. The sound is unnaturally loud. On the eastern ridge, a thermal optic flares white. A sentry shifts his weight, his boot crunching on loose gravel. The darkness seems to tighten. Then, the ridge erupts. A streak of burning white light tears through the black void. The rocket-propelled grenade slams into the outer wall. The explosion roars. It blows the heavy wooden gates inward, turning them into deadly shrapnel. Splinters the size of spears fly through the courtyard. A thick cloud of dust billows up, choking the air. Before the dust settles, a wall of green tracer fire pours from the tree line. Heavy machine gun rounds hammer the dried mud walls. The impact sounds like a sledgehammer hitting wet concrete. The bricks disintegrate. The team returns fire instantly. Assault rifles chatter in controlled, rhythmic bursts. Muzzle flashes light up the courtyard in strobing intervals. Empty brass casings rain onto the hard-packed dirt, chiming like bells. A fighter on the north wall spots movement. He squeezes the trigger. His rifle kicks against his shoulder. A shadow on the ridge drops. But more shadows appear. They swarm down the rocky slope like insects. A second rocket shrieks overhead. It strikes the roof of the command post. The ceiling collapses. Timber and slate crash down, burying the tactical map. Dust coats the men in a gray, ghostly powder. One operator takes a hit to his chest plate. The force lifts him off his feet and slams him against a pillar. He gasps for air. He checks the plate. The ceramic held. He scrambles back to his feet and rejoins the fight. The enemy fire intensifies. Bullets chew through the cover, punching holes in the fragile defense. Chunks of masonry explode near the team leader's face. He wipes grit from his eyes. The noise is deafening. It is a continuous roar of explosions and automatic fire. Communication is shouting only. The team leader grabs the radio handset. He screams over the din. He demands immediate extraction. He checks his magazine. It is light. He looks at his men. They are firing carefully, conserving every round. They know the math. The enemy has thousands of rounds. They have hundreds. A mortar round whistles in. It impacts the center of the courtyard. The ground heaves. The shockwave knocks 2 men flat. Dirt sprays 40 feet into the air. Shrapnel pings off helmets and rifles. A distinct metallic clatter signals the heavy machine gun on the ridge reloading. "Suppressing fire!" the squad gunner yells. He leans over the parapet. His light machine gun roars to life. The belt feeds rapidly. He sprays the ridgeline, walking the rounds across the enemy position. The green tracers stop for a moment, but the respite is short. The perimeter is shrinking. Enemy fighters reach the outer wall. They hurl grenades over the barrier. The explosions rip through the lower garden. Smoke begins to fill the compound, smelling of sulfur and burning wool. The team is trapped. The only way out is up. So 205 hours, Hindu Kush mountain range. The siege tightens. The compound is now a kill box. Enemy muzzle flashes spark from 3 sides, creating a deadly horseshoe of fire. The mud walls are crumbling faster than they can be reinforced. Bullets snap through the air, sounding like cracking whips. Every inch of the courtyard is exposed. The team retreats deeper into the ruins of the stable. The team leader crouches behind a pile of rubble. He keys the radio. Static crackles in his earpiece. He screams the code phrase, "Broken arrow." The call signifies a unit about to be overrun. He repeats the grid coordinates. His voice is steady but urgent. He looks at his wrist. The second hand sweeps too slowly. Outside, the enemy advances. They move with confidence. A heavy machine gun opens up from a nearby rooftop. The rounds tear through the stable's wooden door. Splinters fly inward. One operator flinches as wood shards pepper his face. He stays on the trigger. He fires a short burst through the hole. A scream echoes from outside. The machine gun goes silent. "Ammo check!" the second-in-command yells. "Red," one voice answers. "Black," another shouts. They are running on empty. A grenade lands inside the stable. It bounces once on the hard floor. The metallic clink is unmistakable. "Grenade!" a soldier roars. He dives behind a stone trough. The explosion is deafening in the enclosed space. The blast wave punches the air out of their lungs. Dust falls from the ceiling in thick sheets. Ears ring. Vision blurs. The team leader checks his men. One is clutching his leg. Blood soaks through the fabric of his trousers. A medic slides across the floor. He rips open a trauma packet. He presses a bandage onto the wound. The injured man grits his teeth but keeps his rifle trained on the door. The enemy senses the weakness. They shout commands in the darkness. They are massing for a rush. Footsteps pound on the hard earth outside. Shadows flit past the windows. They are testing the defenses, probing for a gap. "Fix bayonets if you got 'em," the team leader growls. He pulls a fresh magazine from his vest. It is his last one. He slams it into the receiver. He racks the charging handle. The mechanical clack-clack is crisp. Suddenly, the radio squawks. A voice cuts through the static. It is calm, professional. "Thunder is inbound, ETA 2 mics." The team leader looks up. 2 minutes. In a firefight, 2 minutes is an eternity. A rocket hits the stable roof. The structure groans. A support beam snaps with a sound like a gunshot. The roof sags. Debris rains down. The team coughs in the choking dust. They huddle closer together. Their perimeter is now 10 feet wide. Outside, the chanting begins. It grows louder. It is a psychological weapon. They know the Americans are trapped. They know the ammunition is low. The enemy commander blows a whistle. The sound pierces the night. "Here they come!" A sniper yells from the corner. He fires. A figure drops in the doorway. Another steps over the body. The sniper fires again. The bolt cycles. The attack is full scale. Figures swarm the walls. They pour over the breach in the gate. The team unleashes everything they have left. Assault rifles chatter. Pistols crack. The noise is a solid wall of sound. The smell of cordite burns the nose. The team leader looks at the sky through a hole in the roof. He prays for the sound of rotors. He needs the heavy lift. He needs the guns. He fires his weapon. A brass casing ejects and spins in the air. It hits the ground. He waits. 2 10-hours, low-altitude northern ridge approach. The night sky vibrates. 2 massive black shapes tear through the thin mountain air. The tandem rotors beat a heavy rhythmic pulse. Whump, whump, whump. The sound echoes off the canyon walls, a deep thrumming that shakes the loose snow from the peaks. The heavy transport helicopters fly nap of the earth. They hug the jagged terrain 50 feet above the rocks. Inside the cockpit of the lead aircraft, the world is green. The pilot scans the monochromatic display of his night vision goggles. The terrain avoidance radar paints the looming cliff face in bright wireframes. He pushes the cyclic stick forward. The nose dips. The helicopter accelerates. The airspeed indicator climbs 140 knots, 150 knots. The engines scream, burning jet fuel to defy gravity. The co-pilot checks the navigation display. A red diamond marks the extraction zone. It blinks rapidly. 1 minute out, he says over the intercom. His voice is flat, metallic. He flips a bank of switches overhead. The electronic countermeasures system hums to life. In the rear cabin, the environment is chaotic wind and noise. The air rushes in through the open gunner windows. It freezes the sweat on the crew's skin. The crew chief walks along the vibrating metal deck. He wears a heavy tether clipped to the floor. He leans out into the slipstream. The wind whips his flight suit. He scans the ground below. Nothing but black rock and shadows. The door gunners rack the charging handles on their miniguns. The mechanical clack-clack cuts through the engine roar. They check the ammunition chutes. Thousands of rounds of 7.62mm linked ammunition snake from the magazines to the weapons. The barrels spin freely for a second, then lock. The gunners flick the safety covers up. The weapons are hot. The lead pilot banks the aircraft hard left. The G-force presses the crew into their seats. The huge machine pivots on a dime. The fuselage groans under the stress. They thread the needle between 2 limestone spires. The clearance is less than 20 yards on either side. The rotor wash kicks up a cloud of ice crystals behind them. Below, the valley floor opens up. The darkness is punctuated by angry flashes of light. Muzzle flashes sparkle like faulty wiring. The battle comes into view. Tracers arc across the sky. "Tally target," the pilot says. He sees the infrared strobe of the SEAL team. It pulses a rhythmic distress signal from the ruins. The co-pilot arms the flares. Countermeasures set. The aircraft drops. The stomach-churning sensation of freefall hits the crew. They descend into the chaos. The noise of the battle rises to meet them. The peaceful hum of the flight is replaced by the crackle of the radio and the anticipation of violence. The gunner on the right side taps his helmet. He spots a cluster of heat signatures moving toward the ruins. He slews the minigun barrels toward them. He squeezes the spade grips. The electric motor whines. Going in hot, the pilot announces. The helicopter levels out, skimming the rooftops of the village. The dust begins to swirl. Due 12 hours, valley floor engagement zone. The 2 heavy transport helicopters drop into the cauldron. They level out at 50 feet, roaring over the terrified village. The downward thrust of the rotors hits the ground with hurricane force. Debris, loose thatch, and clouds of red dust explode outward. The noise is physical. It rattles the teeth of every man on the ground. The darkness of the valley vanishes. The enemy fighters on the ridges pivot. They ignore the trapped SEALs. They raise their weapons toward the new, massive targets. A web of green tracers reaches up from the earth. The sky fills with lead. Projectiles slam into the lead helicopter. They strike the armored floor plates with the sound of sledgehammers. Thud, thud, thud. One round punches through the thin aluminum skin of the fuselage. It whizzes through the cabin, missing the crew chief's head by inches. It buries itself in the soundproofing insulation. The chief does not flinch. He grips the assist handle. He leans out. "Brake right! Brake right!" The chief screams over the intercom. The pilot stomps on the pedal. The 60-foot aircraft kicks sideways. The tail swings violently. A rocket-propelled grenade streaks through the space where the cockpit was a second ago. The smoke trail dissipates in the rotor wash. The right side gunner sees the launch point. He does not hesitate. He squeezes the butterfly triggers on the minigun. The electric motor spins the 6 barrels to a blur. A 3-foot tongue of flame erupts from the muzzle. The weapon releases a solid stream of bullets. It sounds like canvas tearing, amplified 1,000 times. Brrr. The stream of fire hits the mud brick building on the ridge. The wall evaporates. Clay bricks turn to dust. The roof collapses. The enemy fire from that position ceases instantly. On the left side, the second helicopter lays down covering fire. Its tracers cross with the lead ships, forming a deadly X over the landing zone. The rounds chew up the ground, walking toward the enemy trench line. Dirt sprays into the air. Enemy fighters dive for cover. The suppression is total but temporary. The lead pilot fights the controls. The aircraft bucks in the turbulent air. The master caution light flickers on the dashboard. Hydraulic pressure fluctuates. He ignores it. He focuses on the courtyard. It is a tight fit. The walls are high. The dust is blinding. 300 meters, the co-pilot calls out. Coming in hot. Bullets continue to ping off the airframe. Sparks shower off the engine cowlings. The smell of burning jet fuel mixes with the exhaust. The helicopter flares hard, the nose pitching up to bleed off speed. The rear ramp begins to lower while the aircraft is still moving. So too 15 hours. The compound courtyard. The lead heavy transport helicopter hovers 5 feet above the deck. The massive rotors churn the air into a violent vortex. A wall of brown dust rises instantly, swallowing the aircraft. Visibility drops to 0. The cockpit windows go opaque, coated in a thick layer of grit. The pilot flies blind. He locks his eyes on the hover display, trusting the green digital lines over his own senses. The aircraft drifts left, he corrects. The wheels slam onto the uneven earth. The landing gear struts compress with a metallic groan. The beast is down. Inside the compound, the SEALs shield their faces. The rotor wash feels like a physical blow. Sand blasts their skin, finding every gap in their armor. The noise is absolute. It vibrates in their chests. The red interior lights of the helicopter cut through the swirling dust like demon eyes. The rear ramp whines. It lowers, hitting the dirt with a heavy thud. The dust cloud acts as a shield. Enemy fighters on the ridge lose their visual lock. They fire blindly into the brown haze. Bullets zip through the clouds, snapping like angry hornets. One round strikes the helicopter's fuel tank sponson. Self-sealing foam absorbs the impact. Fuel leaks, but does not ignite. Above the dust, the second helicopter orbits in a tight circle. It is the Guardian Angel. The gunners rain hell on the perimeter. The miniguns sound like zippers tearing the sky apart. Tracers pour down in a relentless red stream. They chew up the tops of the walls, suppressing the enemy RPG teams. Inside the grounded helicopter, the crew chief unclips his tether. He scrambles down the sloping ramp. He waves a green chem light in wide arcs. "Move! Move! Move!" he screams. His voice is lost in the engine roar, but the gesture is clear. The SEAL team leader taps the shoulder of the man next to him. He points to the open maw of the aircraft. The team rises from the rubble. They move in a low crouch. They drag their wounded. The dust coats them, turning them into statues of gray clay. A mortar round lands just outside the courtyard wall. The ground jumps. Shrapnel whistles over the spinning rotors. The pilot grips the collective control. He holds the aircraft steady against the shockwave. The torque gauge spikes. The engines howl, protesting the strain. The loading begins. 2:17 hours, the ramp landing zone. The world inside the dust cloud is a brown, choking hurricane. The rotor wash drives sand and grit into every exposed inch of skin. The heavy metal ramp of the helicopter vibrates violently against the uneven ground. It creates a chaotic bridge between the killing field and the cargo bay. Inside the aircraft, the red tactical lights struggle to pierce the swirling debris. The noise is a physical pressure, a mix of screaming turbine engines and the relentless crump-crump of nearby explosions. The first group of SEALs hits the ramp. Their boots bang loudly on the corrugated metal. They scramble up the incline, slipping on a mixture of leaked hydraulic fluid and loose gravel. They do not stop. They dive onto the cargo floor, rolling to the sides to clear the path. They immediately spin around. They raise their assault rifles. They aim back out into the swirling void. They form a defensive semicircle inside the aircraft, weapons trained on the darkness. "Suppressing!" one operator yells. He fires a controlled burst over the heads of his retreating teammates. The muzzle flash illuminates the interior like a strobe light. Outside, the second group struggles. 2 men drag a wounded comrade. His body is dead weight. His gear snags on the rubble. He groans as his injured leg bounces over the rough terrain. The rescuers grit their teeth. They heave him forward, their muscles straining under the load. A bullet snaps past the ear of the left rescuer. It strikes the helicopter's hydraulic line near the ramp hinge. Fluid sprays out in a high-pressure mist. The crew chief lunges forward. He is tethered to the aircraft wall. He grabs the handle of the wounded man's body armor. He pulls with hysterical strength. The 3 men tumble onto the metal deck. Blood smears across the non-slip coating. The medic is instantly on top of the casualty, shielding him with his own body. The perimeter collapses. The enemy is inside the dust cloud. Shadows emerge from the brown haze less than 20 meters away. They are sprinting. They fire from the hip. Rounds punch through the open rear of the helicopter. Sparks shower down from the ceiling cables. The interior insulation rips open, vomiting yellow foam. The team leader is the last man on the ground. He kneels at the base of the ramp. He fires his pistol with one hand and his rifle with the other. He is the rear guard. He dumps the rifle magazine in 3 seconds. He drops the weapon to its sling. He fires the pistol until the slide locks back. "Move, move!" the crew chief screams, waving his arm frantically. The team leader turns. He drives his legs into the dirt. He leaps for the ramp. His chest slams onto the edge of the metal. He scrambles up on hands and knees. A round hits the sole of his boot, ripping the rubber heel away. He ignores the jolt. He crawls into the bay. The crew chief hits the ramp control button. The hydraulics whine. The heavy door begins to lift, scooping the last of the dust and debris into the cabin. The aircraft is overloaded. It sits heavy on its suspension. The pilot feels the shift in weight. He grips the collective. "Load clear! Load clear!" the chief yells into his headset. But the enemy is not finished. 2 18 hours, extraction zone. The heavy steel ramp grinds upward. It closes the gap between the war outside and the sanctuary of the cargo bay. The hydraulic pistons hiss. Inside, the SEALs lie sprawled across the non-slip deck. Their chests heave. Sweat cuts tracks through the grime on their faces. The air is thick with the metallic taste of adrenaline and the sulfur stench of the miniguns. The crew chief grabs a hanging strap. He leans back to secure the locking lever. The gap narrows. 6 feet, 4 feet, 2 feet. A high-pitched whistle cuts through the thrum of the rotors. It rises in pitch instantly. The sound is unmistakable to every veteran in the bay. The mortar round strikes. It impacts the hard-packed earth 3 meters from the rear landing gear. The ground erupts. The explosion lifts the 20-ton aircraft. The tail section kicks upward violently. The nose slams down, compressing the front struts until they bottom out with a bone-jarring crunch. The fuselage twists. The metal skin screams under the torque. A wave of shrapnel shreds the port side of the helicopter. Jagged shards of steel punch through the aluminum hull. They rip through the insulation blankets and tear into the cargo bay. Inside, gravity fails. Men are hurled into the air. They crash back down in a tangle of limbs and gear. Helmets slam against the floor plates. Rifles slide across the deck, clattering against the bulkheads. A jagged piece of metal the size of a man's hand slices through a bundle of overhead wires. Sparks shower down on the huddled team. The cabin lights flicker and die, plunging the bay into a terrifying strobing gloom. The wounded SEAL on the stretcher slides dangerously toward the rear. The straps strain. The medic lunges. He tackles the stretcher, pinning it to the floor with his body weight. He grunts as a falling ammo strikes his shoulder. He ignores the pain. He checks his patient. Blood is dripping from a new cut on the patient's forehead, but he is conscious. In the cockpit, the master caution panel lights up. Amber and red lights flash. The aircraft yaws viciously to the right. The shockwave has disturbed the airflow to the tail rotor. The pilot stomps on the left pedal. He wrestles the cyclic stick. The vibration in the stick is violent. It shakes his arms up to the shoulders. "Tail rotor chip light," the co-pilot screams. He scans the instruments. "Hydraulic system 2 losing pressure." "Hold it together," the pilot grinds out. He increases the throttle. The engines scream in protest. The aircraft is heavy, damaged, and unbalanced. Smoke begins to curl from the damaged wiring. It is acrid and black. It chokes the men in the back. They cough, pulling their scarves over their faces. The crew chief pulls himself up from the floor. He wipes blood from a cut on his cheek. He slams his fist against the ramp lock. The latches engage with a final, solid thunk. The cabin is sealed. But the danger is far from over. The bird is wounded. The enemy is reloading, and gravity is waiting. So 2:20 hours, 10 feet AGL, above ground level. The crippled heavy transport helicopter hangs in the air. It defies physics. The twin turbine engines scream at maximum RPM. The sound is a high-pitched shriek that pierces the headsets of the crew. Heat waves distort the air around the exhaust ports. Black smoke trails from the damaged port engine, mixing with the swirling dust. The aircraft vibrates violently. It shakes like a wet dog. Rivets rattle in their sockets. The pilot grips the collective lever with both hands. He pulls it up to his armpit. He overrides the safety limiters. The torque gauge needle buries itself in the red zone. The transmission whines, protesting the massive load. The aircraft lurches upward. It does not fly. It claws its way into the sky. The movement is sickening. The tail sways left and right, fighting the damaged rotor control. Below, the enemy swarms the courtyard. They realize their prize is escaping. They raise their weapons toward the new, massive targets. They fire on fully automatic. Hundreds of rounds hammer the underside of the fuselage. The sound is a relentless metallic drumming. Tink, tink, tack, tink. Bullets spark off the armored belly plates. Some find the gaps. They punch through the floorboards. Hot lead zips through the cabin, burying itself in the ceiling padding. Inside the cargo bay, the SEALs stay low. They press their bodies against the vibrating deck. A round strikes a fire extinguisher. The cylinder explodes. White chemical powder bursts into the air, mixing with the smoke and dust. It coats the men in a ghostly frost. The medic shields the wounded man's face. He coughs, spitting out the bitter powder. The pilot pushes the cyclic stick forward. He commits the aircraft to forward flight. The nose drops heavily. The helicopter slides sideways, gathering speed. It feels sluggish, like a brick moving through molasses. The ground rushes by underneath. A blur of gray rocks and muzzle flashes. "Power, give me power," the pilot shouts. The co-pilot monitors the engine temps. They are climbing critical. "Engine 1 temp high, she's running hot." "Let it burn," the pilot yells back. The aircraft shudders as it transitions from a hover to forward flight. The air grabs the fuselage. The lift increases. The altitude climbed. 50 feet, 100 feet. The village shrinks below them. The tracer fire follows them, arcing upward like angry red fingers trying to pull them back down. The second helicopter falls in behind them. It acts as a shield. Its miniguns continue to hose the ground, suppressing the fire. But the lead bird is slow. It limps through the air, trailing smoke. It is a massive, slow-moving target against the starlit sky. On a rooftop ahead, a figure steps out from the shadows. He shoulders a long tube. He aims at the exhaust heat of the struggling aircraft. 2:22 hours, 300 feet AGL Valley Exit Corridor. The wounded Chinook fights for every inch of altitude. The engine vibration rattles the teeth of the crew. Below, the village is a patchwork of shadows and muzzle flashes. The aircraft is a lumbering beast, slow and heavy. The air inside the cabin smells of hydraulic fluid and fear. The right side door gunner leans out into the freezing slipstream. His eyes water from the wind. He scans the flat rooftops racing by underneath. He sees it. A silhouette stands on a water tower. A long tube rests on the figure's shoulder. The muzzle flash is blindingly bright in the night vision spectrum. "RPG, 3 o'clock, break right," the gunner screams. The audio peaks in the intercom, shattering the pilot's concentration. The pilot does not think. Muscle memory takes over. He slams the cyclic stick hard to the right. He stomps the rudder pedal. The massive aircraft responds with terrifying violence. It rolls 60 degrees almost instantly. The horizon disappears, replaced by the dark cliff face. The rotors bite into the air, groaning under the G-force. The rocket-propelled grenade streaks through the space the cabin occupied a split second ago. The smoke trail is a gray scar against the sky. It misses the fuselage by feet. It passes under the tail ramp. It strikes the rock wall of the canyon opposite them. Boom! The warhead detonates. A ball of orange fire erupts against the granite. Shrapnel sprays outward. The shockwave catches the helicopter. It swats the tail boom like a giant hand. The aircraft yaws wildly. The nose dips. The stall warning horn blares, a piercing, continuous tone. Inside the cargo bay, chaos reigns. The violent bank turns the floor into a slide. 12 heavy men laden with armor and weapons lose their grip. They slide en masse across the metal deck. They slam into the starboard bulkhead. It is a pileup of limbs, Kevlar and steel. The wounded man on the litter slides with them. The medic throws his body over the patient, bracing his boots against a seat stanchion to stop the momentum. An ammo crate breaks loose. It tumbles across the floor, striking a seal in the ribs. He grunts but holds his position. The pilot fights the machine. He wrestles the controls. The hydraulic system is sluggish. The aircraft wants to roll over. He pushes the stick opposite. He demands power from the engines. The turbines scream. The blades bite the air. The helicopter shudders, levels out, then drops 20 feet before catching lift again. "Status?" the pilot yells. "Still flying?" the co-pilot responds, his hands flying across the overhead switch panel. "Fire suppression system armed. The aircraft stabilizes, but the momentum is lost." They are slow again. They are low. And now they are angry. So 225 hours, valley ascent. The damaged heavy transport helicopter claws for altitude. It labors up the steep gradient of the valley walls. The engine pitch is a straining, high-frequency whine. Inside the cabin, the floor is a carpet of hot brass casings rolling with the aircraft's movement. The air is thick with the smell of burnt gunpowder. The SEALs hold on to the cargo netting, their knuckles white. The aircraft is a bruised heavyweight fighter, slow but dangerous. The right door. Gunner recovers his balance. He leans into the slipstream. He sees the muzzle flashes sparkling from the village below. He grips the spade grips of the minigun. He does not fire in bursts. He holds the trigger down. The electric motor spins the 6 barrels instantly. The weapon emits a low, guttural roar that drowns out the engines. A solid stream of red tracers pours from the muzzle. It looks like a laser beam cutting through the darkness. The recoil vibrates through the entire airframe. The gunner walks the fire across the rooftops. He tracks the enemy positions. The impact is devastating. The stream of lead hits a 2-story structure. The wall disintegrates. Dust and pulverized clay explode outward. The structure collapses in on itself, burying the shooters inside. On the left side, the crew chief joins the chorus. His minigun screams to life. He targets a truck mounting a heavy machine gun on the road below. The tracer stream connects. The truck's fuel tank ruptures. A fireball erupts, illuminating the canyon walls in stark orange light. The vehicle flips onto its side, burning fiercely. The second helicopter pulls up alongside the lead bird. It adds its own firepower to the mix. 4 miniguns now hammer the valley floor. The volume of fire is overwhelming. It is a rain of lead. The enemy fire from the ground wavers, then stops. The suppression is absolute. Nothing can survive on the rooftops. Inside the lead aircraft, the spent brass ejection chute is overwhelmed. Hot casings spill onto the metal deck. They pile up around the gunner's boots. He kicks them away without looking down. He keeps the barrels spinning. Smoke pours from the weapon's receiver. The barrel clamp glows a dull, angry red. "Clear! Right side clear!" the gunner screams. He releases the triggers. The barrels spin down with a dying mechanical whine. The pilot takes advantage of the silence. He pushes the nose down slightly to gain airspeed. The aircraft shudders as it passes through a layer of cold mountain mist. The altimeter winds up. They are leaving the kill zone. 2:30 hours Alpine Ridgeline, elevation 12,000 feet. The battered heavy transport helicopter strains against the thin air. The temperature outside is 20 degrees below zero. Ice crystals form on the shattered edges of the fuselage hole. The wind howls through the cabin, cutting through flight suits and thermal layers. The aircraft approaches the jagged spine of the mountain range. It is the final barrier. The dark peaks loom like teeth against the stars. The engines whine at a pitch that threatens to shatter the turbine blades. The pilot holds the stick steady. He watches the radar altimeter. 50 feet of clearance. 40. The granite wall rushes toward the nose glass. The downdraft from the peak hits them. The helicopter drops suddenly. The stall warning flickers. The pilot overrides the collective governor. He demands maximum power. The aircraft groans, shudders, and lifts. They crest the ridge. The ground instantly drops away. The view shifts from a wall of rock to an endless void of black sky and distant valleys. The bottom falls out of the world. The helicopter surges forward, catching the clean laminar airflow on the other side. The turbulence vanishes. The violent shaking smooths out into a heavy rhythmic vibration. The silence of the empty sky replaces the roar of the guns. Inside the cargo bay, the red tactical lights reveal the toll. The floor is a slick mess of hydraulic fluid, spent brass, and blood. The SEALs slump against the webbing, their chests heave. The adrenaline crash hits them like a physical blow. Hands shake uncontrollably. The medic works under the dim light. He kneels in the freezing slush. He tightens a tourniquet on the wounded operator's leg. He twists the windlass until the bleeding stops. The patient grunts, his eyes rolling back. The medic checks the pulse. It is weak but steady. He tapes the time onto the tourniquet. He covers the man with a thermal blanket. The silver foil flutters in the freezing draft. The crew chief unclips from the wall. He slips on the fluid-soaked deck. He moves to the port side. He inspects the damage. A jagged hole the size of a dinner plate gapes in the fuselage. Wires hang loose, sparking intermittently. He traces the hydraulic lines. The fluid level is critical, but the leak has slowed. The self-sealing tape held. He gives a thumbs up to the cockpit. The pilot exhales. His grip on the controls loosens slightly. He keys the long-range radio. "Command, this is Thunder 1-1. We are fence out, feet dry. One urgent surgical on board. Aircraft critical. Requesting immediate medical on the ramp." The radio crackles back. "Solid copy, Thunder. The pad is lit. Medical is standing by." The formation banks gently to the south. The lights of the forward operating base appear on the horizon, a cluster of yellow dots in a sea of black. They are ugly, industrial, and beautiful. 0300 hours, forward operating base, Allied sector. The landing zone is awash in blinding white halogen light. Fire trucks and ambulances line the tarmac, their diesel engines idling with a deep rumble. The air smells of unburnt aviation fuel and sterile antiseptic. The deep thrum of the incoming heavy transport helicopters vibrates the chest cavities of the ground crew. The lead aircraft materializes out of the darkness. It looks like a flying wreck. Smoke trails from the number 1 engine. The fuselage is pockmarked with silver scars where paint has been blasted away by shrapnel. It crab walks sideways, fighting the crosswind. The wheels smash onto the concrete. The landing gear struts compress fully and stay down. The aircraft does not bounce. It settles with a heavy, defeated metallic groan. The tires screech. The pilot cuts the power. The high-pitched turbine whine begins to descend. The massive rotors slow, drooping under their own weight like exhausted shoulders. The rear ramp hits the tarmac before the wheels stop rolling. Sparks fly from the metal contact. A team of medics sprints toward the open maw. They carry a collapsible gurney. They slip on the cocktail of hydraulic fluid and blood coating the ramp. They recover instantly. They charge into the cargo bay. Inside, the SEALs are statues. They sit slumped among piles of spent brass casings that cover the floor like gravel. The team leader stands. His legs are stiff. He grabs the front of the litter. The medics grab the rear. They haul the wounded operator down the slippery ramp. His thermal blanket flaps in the dying rotor wash. "Trauma 1, go, go!" a doctor screams over the noise. They shove the gurney into the back of the waiting ambulance. The doors slam shut. The vehicle tears away, tires spinning on the tarmac, sirens wailing into the night. The remaining operators stumble down the ramp. They drag their weapons. Their faces are masks of gray dust and dried sweat. They walk past the fire crews. The firefighters spray white foam onto the smoking engine cowling. The water sizzles on the hot metal, sending up plumes of steam. The pilot unbuckles his 5-point harness. He removes his helmet. He stares at the instrument panel. The master caution light is still blinking red. He climbs out of the cockpit door. He drops to the ground. He walks to the nose of the aircraft. He runs his gloved hand along a jagged tear in the aluminum skin. It is the size of a shark bite, inches from the avionics bay. He looks at the crew chief standing by the open door. They do not speak. They nod once. The ambulance disappears around the concrete blast walls. The rotors finally stop spinning. The wind dies down. Silence returns to the flight line, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of cooling metal.